Do you see this couple? They look like any other young pair in love, but what if I told you that one of them was pure evil? Her name was Grishma, and she tried to kill her boyfriend not once, not twice, but at least 10 times. And when she finally succeeded, it was in a way so slow and cruel it will haunt you. For 11 days, he lay in a hospital bed, dying, begging for a single drop of water. This wasn't just a murder. This was a cold, calculated betrayal, wrapped in the disguise of love. What unfolded was a disturbing web of manipulation, deceit, and cruelty so twisted, it forced even the courts to label this case one of the rarest of the rare. Now let me take you back to the day it all began. It was October 2021 in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. Sharon Raj, a 23-year-old student, was on a bus when his eyes landed on a girl sitting just a few seats ahead. That girl was Grishma, and in that moment, time stood still for him. He felt what many would call love at first sight. Like something straight out of a romantic film, fate gave Sharon the chance to sit right next to the very girl who had just stolen his heart. At first, it was just glances and small talk during the ride. But that bus journey soon turned into a deeper connection, one that spilled over into real life. Sharon was in his final year of a BSc in radiology at the Medical Mission Christian College. Grishma, 22, was pursuing her post-graduation in English literature at a Muslim arts college in Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu. As time passed, their bond grew stronger. They started spending more time together, hanging out, exploring the city, laughing like two people completely lost in love. For Sharon, Grishma became his world. He was serious about their relationship. He believed she was the one he would spend the rest of his life with. But just 4 months later, in February 2022, everything began to unravel. Unbeknownst to Sharon, Grishma's family had already arranged her marriage with another man, and the shocking part, Grishma, while still in a relationship with Sharon, was okay with it. Why? Because the other man who lived in Nagercoil was in the Indian Army and had a stable government job. That checked all the right boxes for her family, and apparently for Grishma too. Now picture this. Sharon, deeply in love, was dreaming of a future with Grishma, while for her, the relationship was just a temporary affair until something better came along. On March 4th, 2022, Grishma got engaged to the Army officer, and her wedding date was set for the following year. When Sharon found out, he was devastated. He broke off all contact with her. But it was Grishma who came back, reigniting the spark in their relationship. She promised Sharon that she would run away with him in November and marry him instead. And just like that, Sharon, desperate to believe her, fell back in. What Sharon thought was true love was just a game for Grishma. While he was making plans for a lifetime together, she was preparing for a new life in a different city with someone else. As their secret affair continued, Sharon's feelings only deepened. He took her promises seriously, especially the one about marriage. But as the wedding date with the army officer crept closer, Grishma began looking for ways to cut Sharon out of her life for good. She tried the astrology trick. She told Sharon that a priest had warned her about a dangerous planetary alignment, something called Jatika Josha, that would cause her first husband's death. She hoped the fear of death would scare Sharon away, but it didn't. Sharon called it superstition and said he didn't care. In fact, he offered to marry her right then and there to prove his love, and he did. He took Grishma to a church in Vachurkavu, Kerala, and they got married. That should have been the end of the story. But this is where it turned darker. Grishma, realizing Sharon wouldn't back off, changed her approach. She played the role of a devoted wife. Whenever they met, she wore sindoor in her hair and a Mangal Sutra around her neck. She convinced Sharon they were truly husband and wife. On August 13th and 18th, 2022, they checked into the Golden Castle Hotel in Parapuvalai, Kanyakumari. They were physically intimate. Sharon was living in a dream, thinking he had won his love back. But behind Grishma's smiles, a sinister plot was already in motion. She had chosen her stage, the old Marthanda Bridge in Ernakulam, Kerala. Under the innocent disguise of a social media trend, she invited Sharon to do the juice challenge with her, a fun little video idea. As Sharon began recording the moment on his phone, Grishma held 2 bottles of mango-flavored juice. One of them was laced with 50 paracetamol tablets, crushed and mixed in beforehand. If you look closely at the footage, you'll notice something chilling. One bottle's cap is already opened because she tampered with it earlier. The one she kept for herself, it was still sealed, and she had to open it on camera. The video shows her fake smile trying to cover the nervousness on her face, the hatred in her eyes, and the storm brewing inside her mind. As Sharon took a sip, he immediately felt something bitter. He spit it out, Grishma panicked. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had counted on the sweet mango flavor to hide the taste of the pills. She quickly grabbed both bottles and tossed them away, claiming the juice had gone bad. Just 4 days before, she had been in a hotel room with him. And now she was trying to kill him. That plan failed. But Grishma's intentions, they were far from over. October 13th, 2022. That evening, Grishma and Sharon were deep into a long WhatsApp chat, texts that stretched late into the night. At exactly 11:02 p.m., she called him. What followed was an hour-long conversation filled with flirtatious talk, and by the end of it, Grishma had made Sharon a promise. The next day, she'd be home alone, her mother and uncle would be leaving after 10 a.m., and she was willing to take things to a more intimate level. But behind her seductive words was a far more sinister intent. The next morning, October 14th, Grishma wasted no time. From early hours, she was texting and calling Sharon repeatedly. She wanted to make sure he didn't change his mind, not for a second. At around 10:15 IMM, Sharon arrived at Grishma's house on a bike, accompanied by his friend Rian, who waited a short distance away. Grishma had already left the gate open, making it easy for Sharon to walk in. What he didn't know was that he was stepping into a trap. And inside, Grishma made small talk at first. Then she brought up a familiar joke, how Sharon always teased her about drinking kashayam, an Ayurvedic concoction made with various herbs, often prescribed for chronic health issues. "If you mock it so much," she said with a smirk, "why don't you drink it today?" She challenged him playfully, but the challenge was anything but harmless. You see, Grishma had already laced the kashayam with poison. Not only that, she had also crushed and mixed in medication her mother had received from Gayatri Hospital for joint pain. But this wasn't some impulsive act of vengeance. Grishma had researched her plan extensively. Every move was calculated. She wasn't just angry, she was determined to erase Sharam from existence. And Sharam's biggest mistake? He accepted the challenge. The taste of the kashayam was unbearably bitter. Grishma, knowing this in advance, had prepared a backup. She handed him a box of fruity mango juice to mask the aftertaste. But by then, the poison had already begun to do its work. Minutes later, Sharon was vomiting in Grishma's bathroom. And then, as his condition worsened, he ran out of the house and collapsed by the roadside. His friend Rayan, shocked and confused, rushed to his aid and got him on the bike. But the journey back home was anything but smooth. Sharon had to stop multiple times to vomit along the way. The fluid he expelled was greenish in color, unnatural, and deeply alarming. When Rijan asked what happened, Sharon simply said, "I drank kashayam and fruity right after." He had no idea he was the victim of a deliberate, cold-blooded attack. He believed it was just a bad reaction, something that would pass. But it didn't. Over the next 3 days, Sharon's health deteriorated rapidly. 3 hospitals, countless tests, yet no improvement. His body was shutting down and the doctors couldn't figure out why. Meanwhile, the girl he had fallen in love with, the one he trusted, was the very person who had poisoned him. And then came the next twist. Just as Sharon left Grishma's house, she texted him, playing the role of a concerned, apologetic friend. "Vomiting is normal," she insisted. "It happened to me too after drinking it." She even said sorry, claimed her mental peace was shattered because she felt responsible. Grishma asked Sharon to join a video call. But by then, the repeated vomiting and fatigue had taken a toll. He declined the call, explaining that he'd already thrown up 3 times green-colored vomit, and yet Grishma didn't stop acting. She kept texting, apologizing over and over, pretending to be riddled with guilt. But this wasn't remorse. It was manipulation, a performance, one designed to deflect suspicion and keep Sharon from realizing the truth. And it worked. Despite being in pain, Sharon consoled her, told her it wasn't her fault, that he'd be fine. He had no idea he was fighting for his life, while his killer watched from behind a screen. Grishma kept pushing one false narrative, that the fruity, not the kashayam, had caused the vomiting. She claimed she'd also vomited after drinking it, but it wasn't green. This was a deliberate lie designed to convince Sharon that it wasn't poison, that there was nothing serious going on, that he just needed to rest. It was all part of her plan, to delay treatment long enough for the poison to finish its job. By 5:23 p.m. that same evening, Sharon was repeatedly asking Grishma to contact the person who had prepared the kashayam. He was desperate for answers. But Grishma ignored the request. Instead, she asked if he'd been admitted to a hospital. He told her he was at Parasala Hospital. That entire night, Sharon continued to vomit, non-stop. The next day, October 15th, Grishma began deleting messages. The cover-up had started. At 9 a.m., Sharon finally texted her, expressing his anger. "This happened because of your kashayam challenge," he wrote. Once again, Grishma deflected, blamed the juice, apologized, played the same card. Between 2 and 3:30 p.m., Sharon sent her another series of texts. His throat was in severe pain. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even swallow a sip of water. He told her he was very sick and that he could no longer talk or take any more calls. By this point, Sharon was slipping away, and Grishma, she was watching it happen, one message at a time. 2 days later, on October 17, 2022, Sharon sent his final message to Grishma. In it, he told her he was undergoing treatment at the medical college hospital. After that day, while Grishma continued to message him, Sharon never replied. His condition had deteriorated so severely that he was no longer capable of responding. By the evening of October 17, his health had taken a drastic turn. Doctors rushed him to the ICU and began dialysis immediately. Sharon's elder brother, Dr. Shomon Rajan, Ayurvedic practitioner, reached out to Regin, the same friend who had accompanied Sharon to Grishma's house. Regin recounted in detail how Sharon began vomiting soon after drinking the herbal decoction Grishma had given him. Dr. Shimon relayed all of this information to Dr. Aruna, the physician in charge of Sharon's treatment. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Dr. Aruna immediately notified the police at the medical college. 2 days later, at 7:15 p.m. on October 20, 2022, Sharon's statement was officially recorded by the judicial first-class magistrate. Tragically, this would become his dying declaration. Although too weak to speak in full sentences, Sharon still managed to convey that his girlfriend had given him a drink, a mix of kashayam and fruity, and that soon after consuming it, he began suffering from severe vomiting and diarrhea. When asked if he wanted to file a complaint against anyone, Sharon refused to name anyone. That statement would later become a crucial element in Grishma's defense. 2 days after his statement, Sharon's father was allowed inside the ICU. When he emerged, he was in tears. He told Shaman that Sharon had confessed he didn't think he was going to survive. He also admitted that he and Grishma had been in a relationship that went far beyond friendship. They had been physically intimate on multiple occasions, often meeting in hotels. Shimon revealed that Grishma had lured him over with advances made via WhatsApp messages and calls, and it was during that visit that she gave him the herbal drink, after which his condition started to decline. Shimon immediately called Grishma to ask about the medicine she had given his brother. What followed would expose a web of lies. During that phone call, Grishma told Shimon that a doctor from Calicut had prescribed the herbal concoction, but when Shimon asked for the name of the kashayam, she gave him the wrong one. When asked to send a photo of the bottle and the prescription, she claimed her mother had washed the bottle, causing the label to come off. She also said the doctor hadn't given her a written prescription. When Shimon insisted, asking her at least to send a picture of the bottle cap, which usually contains the brand name, Grishma spun another lie. She claimed the original bottle was with her mother, and that she had poured the medicine into a different bottle before giving it to Sharon. Finally, when pressed further, Grishma downloaded a random Kashayam bottle image from Google and sent it to him. This series of evasions made one thing painfully clear. Grishma was deliberately hiding the origin of the drink. She didn't want doctors to know what Sharon had consumed. And unfortunately, her deception worked. Believing it to be a case of simple copper sulfate poisoning, doctors shuffled Sharon between departments, failing to treat the root cause. Within the next 72 hours, his pulse and breathing had nearly stopped. Despite administering high-flow oxygen and placing him on both invasive and non-invasive ventilators, the medical team couldn't revive him. After 11 days of relentless suffering, without being able to swallow even a drop of water, Sharon succumbed to multi-organ failure and cardiac arrest at 5:55 p.m. on October 25, 2022. The investigation begins. The next day, on October 26, Shimon gave his formal statement at Parasala police station. Sharon's body was sent for post-mortem, but now investigators faced a daunting challenge. There were no eyewitnesses, and the physical evidence was largely circumstantial. 5 days later, on October 31, 2022, Grishma was summoned for questioning. What followed was yet another elaborate lie, an attempt to mislead the investigation and absolve herself. Grishma told police that her fiancé had discovered her affair with Sharon. According to her story, her fiancé had eventually accepted the reality of their relationship and agreed to step away quietly. But on October 13, Sharon insisted on meeting her, and despite her repeated refusals, he showed up at her house on October 14. While there, he reportedly saw their engagement album on the bed and checked Grishma's phone, where he found a recent call with her fiancé. Furious, he lashed out at her. Grishma claimed that after she calmed him down, she went to the washroom, only to return and find that Sharon had consumed a herbal medicine she had prepared for her mother. According to her, Sharon drank it on his own. No one poisoned him. But Grishma didn't stop there. In a bizarre act of manipulation, she pretended to drink toilet cleaner at the police station. She was immediately hospitalized, but as the act was clearly staged, she was quickly discharged. However, lies don't hold up forever. The truth surfaces when confronted with mounting evidence, call recordings, WhatsApp chats, messages, and her own internet search history. Grishma broke down and confessed. But the case didn't end with her confession. Her mother and uncle were arrested as well. Grishma's mother was taken into custody after Sharon's father alleged that she too was part of the conspiracy. The motive? A belief in a dangerous superstition. Grishma's uncle, Nirmala Kumara Nair, was arrested for destroying evidence. He was an agriculturist and often stayed at the very house where Sharon last visited Grishma. During the investigation, police uncovered something even more damning. At a fertilizer depot near the Tamil Nadu-Kerala border, Grishma's uncle had purchased a 500 ml bottle of herbicide, a chemical used to destroy wild plants and weeds. The herbicide he bought was so deadly that the Kerala government had banned it. It was being smuggled into the state illegally with no receipts or records. Grishma, despite being a college topper, had used her intelligence in the worst possible way. She knew exactly what was stored in her home, and she used it. Police were able to recover all of Grishma's deleted WhatsApp chats and files. The data revealed that on October 13, she had sent explicit messages to Sharon, luring him to her house on October 14. But the most chilling piece of evidence came from her Chrome search history. On August 22, 2022, the day she gave Sharon the juice challenge, she had searched Google 23 times for articles about paracetamol overdose, toxicity, and poisoning. The post-mortem report of Sharon raised one final disturbing question. What exactly did Grishma mix into that kashayam? Sharon's internal organs showed signs of severe damage caused by a corrosive poison. Doctors concluded that the nature of the injuries, particularly to his lungs, strongly indicated the use of a herbicide. It was a calculated, cold-blooded murder. And the most horrifying part, Grishma had turned her home, once a place of love and trust, into a silent crime scene. But Grishma had already done her research. She had extensively searched the internet to understand the impact of the chemical she used. The herbicide was so lethal that once it entered the human body, it began damaging the kidneys, lungs, and liver within just an hour. And if doctors failed to detect the exact chemical within the first 24 hours, over 90% of it would already be flushed out through the urine, making it virtually undetectable. In other words, if Sharon had been diagnosed correctly within the first day, dialysis could have flushed out the poison and saved his life. And Grishma knew this. That's precisely why, from the beginning, she was deliberately misleading not only Sharon, but also his brother Shimon, to buy enough time and make saving Sharon impossible. Just imagine the sheer level of cunning and cruelty this girl operated with. The police presented a mountain of evidence. WhatsApp chats between Grishma and Sharon, voice notes she had sent, call recordings, Sharon's mobile location on October 14th. Every single piece built a rock-solid case. But in her defense, Grishma spun a completely different narrative. She claimed that Sharon was blackmailing her, that he had threatened to leak their private photos if she didn't agree to marry him. She also alleged that he physically abused her, using these threats to manipulate her. Her defense counsel argued that Sharon never named Grishma in his dying declaration before the magistrate, and that the initial FIR didn't even mention foul play. In fact, the defense stooped so low, they not only questioned the integrity of the police investigation, but even went as far as to call it a justified murder. But despite all their attempts, there was no evidence, none, in Sharon's phone data, Google Drive, or WhatsApp chats that could support Grishma's claims of being blackmailed. The trial lasted for months. Eventually, after 111 days in custody, Grishma was granted bail by the Kerala High Court. Her mother and uncle had already secured bail earlier. The reason? The court noted her cooperation with the investigation and the fact that she was young. For Sharon's family, this was a devastating blow. Still, they didn't give up. They kept fighting for justice. And finally, their perseverance paid off. After recording statements from 95 witnesses, reviewing 323 documents, and examining 51 pieces of material evidence, the Naya Tinkara Additional Sessions Court delivered a historic verdict. The court found that Grishma had a clear motive to murder Sharon. Her marriage had already been arranged to someone else, and she wanted to erase Sharon from her life, to settle down safely, without her past ever haunting her. She didn't want anyone, especially her future in-laws, to learn about her intimate past with Sharon. She wanted to make sure their photos and videos never surfaced. The court ruled that the nature of the murder was so brutal, so vile, that it stirred extreme public outrage, qualifying it as a rarest of the rare case. The judge stated that Grishma had metaphorically killed Sharon, inch by inch. She pretended to love him, maintained a relationship with him, and used that trust to carry out a cold-blooded, calculated murder. And that sends a disturbing message to society. The trauma Sharon endured in those final 11 days, without food or even a drop of water, is beyond words. And yet, despite the pain, Sharon loved Grishma so much that even on his deathbed, he didn't name her. And this is how she repaid him, by tearing him apart, slowly and mercilessly. Grishma later wrote a letter to the court begging for leniency. She pleaded that she was only 24 years old and had no prior criminal record, but the court rejected her appeal for mercy. They stated that a person capable of such cruelty and manipulation harbors dangerous, devilish tendencies. There's no guarantee she wouldn't do this again. Someone like her cannot be rehabilitated, and as for her age, future, and dreams, those considerations applied to the victim too. Considering all the facts and circumstances, the court declared the case to be unequivocally rarest of the rare. Under Section 322 of the Indian Penal Code, Grishma was sentenced to death. On January 20th, 2025, the verdict was announced. Grishma received the death penalty. Her uncle was sentenced to 3 years in prison for destroying evidence, while her mother was acquitted due to lack of proof. But the revelations didn't end there. During the investigation, Grishma admitted to attempting to kill Sharon not once, not twice, but 10 times over the course of just 2 months, starting from the infamous Juice Challenge incident up until October 14th. It was also revealed that before Sharon, she had been in at least 4 other romantic relationships. But one thing is clear. This case shook the conscience of an entire nation and rightfully earned its place among the rarest of the rare. If you found this story disturbing, heartbreaking, or eye-opening, share it. Let people know what happened, because stories like these aren't just about justice, they're about awareness. I create these documentaries to spread awareness, and your one subscribe can help this message reach thousands more. So if you believe in justice, in truth, and in the power of stories that matter, then hit that subscribe button, because the next case might be even darker.